Your phone buzzes face up on the table, and you don't even have to look to know who it is. It's a name you love, and under that name, three small words you've quietly learned to dread. Can we talk? Because lately, can we talk never means how are you? It means how much. And you feel it land in your chest before you've even opened it. That familiar, tired weight. Somewhere along the way, without ever choosing it, you became the person everyone calls the moment their money runs out. The dependable one. The one who planned ahead. The one who somehow always seems to have it. And nobody warns you that quietly getting your own money right turns you into everyone else's backup plan. This was never a story about greed. It's about the strange, specific loneliness of being the responsible one in a room full of people who aren't, and the single calm sentence that finally, quietly, set you free. It started small. It always starts small. A friend was short on rent one month. You had it, so you helped. No big deal. You'd want the same. And honestly, it felt good. Being the one who can help feels an awful lot like being important. You didn't lecture. You didn't make it weird. You just quietly solved it and asked for nothing back. You never advertised it. You just never said no. And in a world full of people who say no, that was enough to mark you. Because people remember exactly who said yes. They file it away, and they come back. First it was rent, then a brother's car that died on the highway, then a cousin whose business needed a bridge, then a friend who just had to make it to payday. Then payday came, and somehow the money didn't. Each request was reasonable, each one was real, and each one quietly became yours to carry. You started to notice the pattern in how they asked. The long preamble, the careful tone, I hate to even bring this up. You didn't look rich. That was the thing. You looked stable. And stable is exactly what frightened people come searching for. So without ever applying for the job, you became a bank. One that charges no interest and asks no questions. And you slowly realized one that almost never actually gets paid back. And once you're the one who says yes, you start to meet every kind of asker there is. There's the genuine one, a person in a rare, real emergency who hates asking and pays you back the moment they can. That one is easy. That one you would help 100 times over. And that one, almost always, quietly pays you back. Because they never wanted to need you. But that's not the one who empties you. Because there's the chronic one, always one crisis away from fine. There's the guilt artist, who never quite asks. Who just describes the problem and waits for you to feel obligated to fix it. There's the entitled one, who treats your savings like a shared family resource you're somehow selfish to guard. And there's the investor, who doesn't want a loan. He wants you to fund a dream he hasn't finished thinking through. For a long time, you treated every one of them exactly the same. You said yes to all of them the same, because sorting them felt like judging them, and judging the people you love felt like the one thing you weren't allowed to do. So you paid, again and again, just for the comfort of never having to decide who actually deserved it. Here's what almost nobody admits out loud about lending money to the people you love. The money rarely comes back, but the expectation, that never ever leaves. A loan to family is not really a transaction. It's a hostage exchange. And the hostage is the relationship itself. Because every loan quietly rewrites who you are to them. You stop being a brother, a friend, a son. You become an option. The first thing they reach for in a crisis is no longer, Cuckhorse, what do I do? It's I'll just ask you. And slowly it poisons both sides. They feel small for needing you. You feel used for being needed. Holidays get a little stiff. Eye contact gets a little shorter. The unpaid debt pulls up a chair and sits at the table between you. You lie awake replaying it. Who owes what? Who said what? Who still hasn't mentioned it? And the runway you built so carefully, one disciplined dollar at a time, begins to quietly leak. The money you saved for your own freedom is now funding everyone else's emergencies, one yes at a time. But here's the part that truly costs you. And it was never about the money at all. It's the resentment. The slow, ugly resentment that grows in the exact space the money used to fill. You start screening calls from people you love. You feel guilty for feeling used. And then, somehow, you say yes again. Because saying no to family feels like betrayal. So instead, quietly, you betray yourself. And the reason you keep saying yes isn't really kindness. It's a set of stories you tell yourself in the dark. It's family. You don't say no to family. As if love and money were the very same currency. I'd want someone to help me. Maybe. But you built a runway precisely so you would never have to ask. What a kind of person has it and refuses? As if simply having it obligated you to surrender it. They'd do the same for me. Would they? Or do you already quietly know the answer to that? It's just this once. It is never ever just this once. Each story sounds like generosity, But underneath every single one of them runs the same quiet engine: fear. Fear of being seen as cold, fear of the silence, fear of being the villain in someone else's story. And fear, you'll learn, is the single most expensive thing you can ever let run your bank account. Because a gift given out of fear isn't generosity at all, it's a ransom. There's a single word that would end all of it, and you know exactly what it is. No, 2 letters. The single hardest sentence in the entire language to say to someone you love. And here's the cruel twist. The reason it's so hard is precisely that you can afford it. When you genuinely can't pay, no is just a fact. It explains itself, and no one argues with it. But when you can pay, no feels like a choice, a deliberate decision to withhold love. So you reach one more time for the lie that feels like mercy, just this once. This one's different. This one matters. But one more time is exactly how a boundary dies. Quietly, politely, and always with the best of intentions. Guilt, you finally understand, is just the interest you keep paying on a loan you should never have made. And every yes you can't afford emotionally will cost you far more than any yes you could ever afford in cash. So the question quietly changed. It stopped being, can I afford this? And became, what is saying yes actually costing me? Then came the day it finally changed. Not with a fight, not with a speech, with a text. Same name, same 3 words. Can we talk? But this time, before you answered, you did the math. Not the money math, the life math. You added up the years of quiet rescues, and you finally saw, clearly, what they had actually produced. Every rescue had made them a little weaker, and made you a little smaller. You weren't helping them anymore. You were funding the very pattern that kept them stuck. There's a hard word for that, and you finally let yourself say it. You weren't helping, you were enabling. And the kindest, most loving thing was no longer to catch them. It was to let them feel the ground. So you typed the sentence, and for the very first time, you did not apologize for it. I love you. I can't lend you the money, but I'm here for you, and we'll figure out what's next together. You read it twice. Your thumb hovered over send, every old fear screaming, and you sent it anyway. Then came the silence. The long, heavy silence. The exact place where, every time before, the guilt had won. But this time, it didn't win. Because no was never a rejection of them. It was protection. For you both. And the flinch you'd carried in your chest for years, the one that braced every time the phone lit up, finally let go. Now let's be honest about what happens next. Because it isn't always a warm hug. Sometimes no is met with understanding, and sometimes it is met with cold. There may be a silence longer than you'd like. A reply that never comes. A story told about you at gatherings you weren't invited to. You may be called changed, selfish, different, now that he has a little money. And this is the moment that decides everything. The moment most people fold and reach for the wallet to buy the peace back. Don't. Because the discomfort you feel isn't proof that you did something wrong. It's proof you finally did something new. A boundary without a consequence was never a boundary. It was only ever a suggestion. So hold the line, kindly, without defending yourself into a corner. You don't owe a paragraph of justification for one honest no. The guilt will spike, and then, slowly, like a tide going out, it will recede. And what's left standing on the other side of it is the clearest view of your life you have ever had. Because here's what no reveals. And it is, by a wide margin, the most useful thing your money will ever buy you. Some people vanish the very moment the money does. They were never close to you. They were close to your wallet. And their leaving isn't your loss. It's information, and you paid a remarkably small price to finally get it. You'll grieve a few of them. That's allowed. Losing the idea of someone still hurts, even when the reality already left. But some people stay. A little hurt maybe, confused maybe, and they stay anyway. Those are the ones who wanted you. Not your yes, not your account balance. You. The filter is painful. It is also a gift, because for the first time, you know exactly who is real. And you can love those people completely, generously, fiercely, without ever opening your wallet to prove a thing. The people worth keeping never needed you to buy them. They were already yours and you were already theirs. So no, this was never about becoming the person who says no to everyone and calls it strength. It's about learning to give on purpose instead of giving on reflex. Decide in advance and in calm what you actually want to give, and to whom, and why. And when you do choose to help, give a gift, not a loan. A gift ends cleanly. A loan lingers and rots and waits. Give only what you can fully afford to never see again. Then release it completely. No ledger, no leash. And when the answer is no, remember, no to the money does not have to mean no to the person. You can offer time, a skill, a plan, a connection, a seat at your table, real help that doesn't bleed your runway dry. The most generous people you'll ever meet aren't the ones who say yes to everything. They give deliberately, and they protect what lets them keep giving. Because generosity that destroys the giver isn't generosity. It's a slow act of self-erasure wearing a kind face. So, guard the source, so the river downstream can keep on running. So if you've become the one everyone asks, the safe one, the stable one, the human emergency fund, understand this. The kindest thing you can offer the people you love isn't an open wallet. It's an honest, steady, loving no. Build quietly, guard what you built, and give on purpose. And let one calm sentence show you, once and for all, who is really there for you, and who is only ever there for it. Money, past a certain point, stops buying things. It starts buying the freedom to simply be honest. This is wealth mechanics. We don't sell you the dream. We show you the gears underneath it. Subscribe, and the next time someone you love asks, you'll know the difference between helping and bleeding. None of this is financial advice. It's a story about boundaries, about money, and about the people who stay. I'll see you in the next one.